Share this with anyone that wasn't able to make it, but I could go on and on and on for hours tonight and not get to the things you want to talk about. But we did this a couple years ago, and I kept a lot of the slides. I updated a couple of them just because they were outdated. But we talked about a ton of things when we did this last time. And one of those was whether or not you want to do it. Are any of you guys kind of going back and forth on whether or not you want to play? Or you're all positive you want to do it? It's so much easier. No one's on the fence at all? Well, you may find yourself in the next couple of years. It's really interesting to see what happens. And I mean, you guys are clearly one of the best teams in the state right now, so you probably all want to keep playing. But you'll see sometimes people kind of change their minds and they decide, I want to go to a big school and I don't know if I have that much time, or I want to study something that might be challenging. But I can tell you that we talk about this all the time, that will give you playing a sport and participating as part of a team in college will give you more than you can give it. Okay. This is Lindsay Russell. Lindsay Russell played volleyball here years ago. She had this really cool story where she worked on a mentorship program with me, and she was telling me she was applying for a job, and she was sitting down in this interview, and it was kind of like this big table like this, and there was like 10 people interviewing her. And she said at one point it was going poorly. She was like, I'm losing everyone in the room, I could tell. And then it came up that she played volleyball. She was an All-American volleyball player here on a nationally ranked team. She was a superstar. And she goes, it came up that I played volleyball. And she goes, from that point on, people pulled their chairs up, they sat up, all of a sudden they looked up, they put their phones down, started talking, and it changed the entire scope of everything. And then I was like, Lindsay, that's your mistake. That should have been on the front page of your resume. That should have been something huge. But employers are looking for athletes. I have friends, Eric and I know a guy that's a really successful doctor right now, and he told me when he was getting into grad school that they weren't looking for someone that was just in the library all the time and had the perfect test scores. They were looking for people that could be part of a team and people that could work as part of a team and lead and that type of stuff. So I hope you guys understand if you ever go, that's a very normal feeling to have that you might have in the next couple of years, but it's hugely important for all these things, okay? And there's a program for everyone. I don't think you guys would probably have that kind of concern right now, just knowing where you guys are as athletes, but even players that are just getting started, there's a program for everybody, okay? These next couple slides are tough. There's tons of numbers. And these were made a couple years ago. And it just talked about the numbers of kids playing soccer in high school and the number of seniors and things. The current numbers are a little bit different, but you're not going to remember these numbers. They're similar, okay? But if you look at that, 95,000 senior boys playing high school soccer, okay? Any given year. That's Tesha Kozlowski, who Eric coached years ago, played at Dayton, and is now coaching and has a kid in our club. But when you consider this, as you look into the content again, you look at 205 Division I men's teams at the time, 338 women's teams. You go down to Division III, over 400 teams for sure. There's quite a few teams. That's the number of teams that you have, okay? And we're talking about the number of high school kids. And we talk about when you combine those divisions, NCAA Division I, II, and III, you'll get that many men's teams, that many women's teams. So if you consider each team needs about 8 players, right? Maybe they graduated so many kids. That leaves you about 8,320 spaces available for those 95,000 senior boys, okay? You guys have already survived a huge drop-off getting through that U13, U14 period of time where millions of kids quit sport every year. So I don't know who that guy is. That was a long time ago. That's a great, dude, that's a grainy picture. That is old black and white. You know who that is, right? You don't know who that is? That's Eric. Holy cow. That's college Eric. So, yeah. Yeah. That was a pretty fierce picture, too. Look at his hair. Like he had a little mullet still from the... But when you look at scholarships that are available, okay, 9.9 available for D1 men. And that doesn't mean a year. That's their entire program, okay? So if you have a program of 28 guys, there's only 9.9 scholarships represented in there. And that's if your school will fully fund it. There are some schools that won't. 9.9 is the max. Some schools will say we can only fully fund 7 scholarships or so. So it's much more common that a school will split a scholarship. You could have 14, 15, 20 people on scholarships, and some of those people have half scholarships or a quarter of a scholarship. Eric and I coached a player years and years ago, and she had a scholarship to play Division I soccer, and everyone's like, oh, she's going to go play at Akron at the time. Akron was reviving their women's program, and she had a scholarship to play D1 soccer. It's pretty cool. And then people started talking about it, and they're like, she has a full scholarship to play D1 soccer. It was a $500 scholarship to pay for books. So by the time it got through the grapevine, she had a full scholarship and she was going to school for free, and that wasn't the case, okay? You're also going to find that teams and schools will combine your athletic scholarship potential with academic money as well. And I'm going to tell you, when people have asked me a question, how does my kid get a scholarship to play soccer in college? It's your grades. Keep your grades up. It is the best way to do it. You tear your ACL, you're going to keep your academic scholarship. If someone's outperforming you, you're going to keep your academic scholarship, okay? But what that is that allows for those numbers. And when you start to compare that with those many teams and you start to do the math, you start to decide how many people times the amount of kids in high school and their senior year and that type of stuff, you run out of scholarships. And what it really is about 5% of college or high school women seniors will have a soccer scholarship. And because there are fewer programs for men, the men's side's closer to about 2%. Okay? So if your goal right now is, I want to go to school for free, you're not going to do it through soccer. Okay? Eric, do you know anyone that truly was a full scholarship? You've had players in the past?
Yeah, some of the best players that I ever coached were 50% or maybe 60%. It's just like, you're probably talking national team level, national pool level players to even approach that.
Eric and I had a player on the women's side when he still had an ambassador a few years ago that played in this past Women's World Cup. She went and played at Florida and did not have a full scholarship. She was a two-time All-American at Florida. Did not have a full scholarship. Okay, so when you think about those kind of things, there's this huge drop-off, like I said, and we're also, when I talk about your high school numbers, we're only talking about American players. The higher you get up, especially in a sport like soccer, you're competing with kids from overseas too. Competing with a ton of British kids and kids from all over the world. Okay, so like I said, your focus really should be on keeping your grades up and doing the best you can. If you get any kind of scholarship at all, that's huge. You should be super appreciative of that. Okay, so when you look at financial aid that's a little more consistent and easier to kind of plan for, you have merit-based scholarships. That means you have a 3.7 GPA and you qualify for this scholarship. Okay, you have a 4.0, you qualify for this. You can get 3.2 and get a certain level. Obviously, the money goes down a little bit as your grades go down. Okay, you can also get scholarships from outside sources. My wife decided to go to school here at Otterbein because she grew up in Westerville. The Westerville Kiwanis Club paid for a massive portion of school. There's all these rumors that for years and years, there's all these scholarships that go unclaimed, and that's true. You can find those kind of things. You just got to keep an eye out for it and look for it. Okay. Grants are, I don't think I really need to do this probably, but it's fun drawing on this thing. So grants are, that's money you don't have to pay back. Okay. There used to be an award called the Ohio Choice Award. You choose a school in Ohio, you get X amount of money. So it might be $4,000 a year. Sometimes that number wavered a little bit. It kind of went up and down a little bit. One year it was $3,000. One year it's $4,000. One year it's $5,000. So that is money you don't have to pay back. You can receive grants. It's huge. A lot of schools right now, they want you to live on campus. Okay, I'm learning a lot about how schools actually make money, and they want you to live on campus. So some schools will give you a $1,000 grant just for living on campus. So it's kind of strange because they could just discount housing, but they want you to see that they want you to live on campus. Okay, so, but that's money, like I said, you don't have to pay back. Need-based financial aid. The government's going to decide how much your family should be able to afford to pay for college, and they're going to report a number for you, and then the school is going to decide how much of that they want to meet. Some schools will meet 100% of your need. Some schools can only get to 80 or 90% of that. Some schools can't even meet that. But that is when what your family, what you guys do, and the bank accounts you have, and what your family does, what your parents do for a living, and that kind of stuff is going to come into question. Okay? And then there's loans. A lot of students take out loans to get through school. Okay? That's obviously money you have to pay back. And then you could work study jobs. Work study jobs on campus. Like we have a building you guys have been in, the Clements Recreation Center right down the street there. Or maybe you work in the library, or maybe you help manage these facilities. They're typically minimum wage jobs, and you only work 2 or 3 hours a day because you're playing soccer and you're going to school as well. So it's not a great way to make a ton of money. I highly suggest you get into coaching because you can work 2 or 3 hours a day and make a heck of a lot more money as a coach. So when did you start coaching, Eric?
Gosh, I don't remember.
Well, wait, I know this. I forgot, because you coached me when I was 16. You were still in college. You were still in college, right? So yeah, and it's just a much, much easier way to make money. I forgot about that. He quit midway through.
Thanks for calling that out, Brandon.
Hey, I didn't tell them that you quit in the middle of the season. So this is what you're going to do. This is the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, right there. And when you apply for that, that's what's going to be. And you can right now. You used to have to put your prior year. You used to have to put your prior year's tax information and financial information, but now you can put the prior year to the prior year and help it get that information out a little bit quicker and a little bit sooner. This is where you'll do it. You only have to do it through that group one time, and that's going to be the number that any school you apply for that they're going to get. But what's been happening lately is you're doing that every year. So if anything changes, you're going to do it again and again and again, and that kind of stinks. I'll tell you, one of the best ways to find out what's going on, and these estimators have become better and better every year, is use a campus estimator, okay? The only thing I will tell you is you have to be honest. I had a player a few years ago, and they filled out the estimator, and they were like, we can afford this, is great. And the guy forgot to add in the estimator a bank account that had like $200,000 in it. So when he added that to it, it obviously changed his numbers. And he's like, this is false advertising. The estimator said this. He wasn't honest on the estimator, though. So this is only information. This is information only your family will have. So just be honest on it, and it'll give you a much better idea of what you can afford and what you're willing to afford. Okay. This stuff's pretty boring for you guys. But, like I said a little earlier, focus on academics. That's going to be the best way for you to keep your to earn a scholarship and keep it. And this is massively important. If your grades are a little bit lower than you want, just show improvement. Sometimes, especially you guys are in middle school probably during COVID. Is that true probably? Elementary school even? Oh, they were probably in elementary school. So, but I was still dealing with kids that had high school years where they were struggling with that kind of stuff, and it changed the way we learn. And it challenged some kids. So I saw kids that were coming in with really bad freshman years in high school, and they never got up to where they fully wanted to be, especially what their last 3 years of high school would have been. But that improvement is hugely important. A lot of times the people that are making decisions, their deadlines, if you hit this, you're going to get this scholarship. If you hit this, you'll qualify for this or that. But it's also human beings sitting down talking about how they're going to admit you to the school and how much aid you're going to get. So when I've seen admissions counselors do it, when they show an improvement, it's going in the right direction, then it's much, much easier for you to get that next level up. I've seen kids that are just below a presidential scholarship, and an admissions counselor will go, this kid's awesome. This kid's a whatever school you're looking at, our type of kid, and they'll bump it up. So make sure you're showing that improvement along the way, okay? If you guys want to play Division I and Division II soccer, you have to register. You have to register with the NCAA, okay? And you're going to have to take certain classes and make sure that you've qualified in that way. So I'll show you what that looks like. That looks like this. If you're playing Division III sports or NAIA, you don't have to do it. You guys are welcome to take pictures of anything you want here and that kind of stuff too, so no problem at all. But if you want to play sports, you'll have to go to there and fill that out and make sure that you'll be given a number that coaches can help find you with. And I don't have to do it as much. It's not, like I said, we don't do it for Division III, but it'll help you decide to make sure you have the core classes that you need to and to qualify for the NCAA. But your school is helping you do that.
Coach, what age do you recommend, or what year in school? Is that something for juniors and seniors, or
for the clearinghouse?
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, for Division III, we don't do it.
Yeah.
I would say as soon as you're looking into it, I would do it.
Okay.
There were 8 middle school kids last year that verbally committed to a D1 school. A little bit more on the girls' side that happens. It's really interesting because you don't become a recruitable student until you're in high school. So those superstar stud 8th graders, like coaches will talk to them before they turn into high school kids because you can actually talk to them before that. But there's no 8th graders signing up for the eligibility center. So if you're looking to play at Ohio State, you're looking to play at a big D1 school, I would look into it ASAP. What are you guys all freshmen right now? Pretty much for the most part. Got a couple 8th graders? Yeah, you probably got another year, but.
Going into freshmen and sophomores.
Okay. I would look into it,
Okay.
but don't be surprised if you find out you're not supposed to do it till you're a junior or something like that. So I would always just try earlier. It's a little bit different on the women's side. They will go earlier. And there are some D1 schools that seniors will commit to on men's and women's side. But for the most part, the bigger D1 schools, I know sophomores that are committing to those schools. Juniors for sure. The smaller D1s, juniors for sure. And then you get into D2, you start to get into the seniors and the end of their junior. I have a kid who's committed already as a high school junior. She committed a couple months ago to D3 school, which is weird. But it's happening. It's getting earlier and earlier and earlier. So I don't know. I feel terrible because I don't know. I don't know when you're supposed to do that. I'm just happy I don't have to deal with it. So it's a little bit different for the NAI. They have the same thing, but it's an NAI school version. Okay, that's actually Coach Josh. You can tell these are pixelized pictures because they're so much older, but Josh is in our club as well, and his kids are in our club, coaches for us. So this is what I would start doing if I were you guys. Okay, kind of what do you want to study? You'd have no idea. I have a degree from this school here, and it's not what my job is in. And then I went and got a master's degree, and it is not what my job is in. Okay, so you guys will. That's not Craig. I think my wife just let my dogs out. So, all right. If you see that light up, will you tell me if it's Craig? So, having an idea what you want to study, though, is a good place to start. Right? Some of you will know, I want to do this. I want to be a physical therapist. I want to study exercise science. I want to go into sports business. I want to be a doctor, or whatever it might be. Having that helps right now, okay? But understand it may change. When I came to college, I changed within my first quarter of school. I changed what I want to do. So, do you want to be in a big city or a small college town? Those are hugely important questions. Do you want a small school? Do you want a huge school? Okay? How about the proximity to home? When I talk to recruits about this is being in a school so close to Columbus. I have a lot of really good soccer around here. It's different for schools that are in more remote areas. So I have to recruit a lot of kids that are very close to my campus, okay? And one of the things I try to make them understand is when you go away, you're only away. You go 2 hours away, you're no closer than 2 hours away. You have to have a flight, you have to have a flight, right? So when I was in school, one of my grandmothers passed away. And the family called and said, hey, we need to get to the hospital. And that was important to me. It was important to me to be close to my family. So when I was here, I was a million miles away from home. But when I needed to be close, I was close. So it's just something to consider. Some people, no problem, they want to get a little further away. What tends to happen is I know freshmen that will say, I want to go to Arizona and I want to go to Florida. And then when they're sophomores, they're like, I might stay a little closer. And then when they're juniors, they're like, I'm going to stay in Ohio. So it ends up getting a little bit tighter as you get a little bit older, okay? But just kind of keep in mind that when you go away, you're away. You can never be close. But sometimes, especially when I recruit women, they're like, oh, I can't go to a school so close. My mom will be here every weekend, and she's going to stop by, right? And just like you're laughing, it never happens. That does not happen. So if that's one of your concerns, I wouldn't be concerned about that. But then, obviously, you're playing soccer or not. Okay, it's important for you to decide whether or not that's something you want to do. What level? Okay, that was actually that was one of Eric. Who's that?
Is that Tim Cooper?
Yes. That's who it was. Yep. So who was he? He played for. Who was he to you?
He went to Akron.
Right, and he was an ambassador kid. Was he on that team that went like 10 to 19 or something?
He was on our second team until U16. And just kept growing and developing, and by U18 had a scholarship to Akron.
That's crazy. That's impressive. As you take that, and when I gave you that list from the previous slide, take that information to collegefitfinder.com. That is one of my favorite sites that I send families to. And what it does is you put all that stuff in there. I want to spend maybe this amount of money, or I want to be this far from home, or I want to study this, or I want to be in a small town, I want to be in a big city, whatever it is. I want this many students, I want this sport, I want this major. And when you do that, it'll spit out a list of schools that qualify all those things for you, okay? It is a tremendous place to start because, as I showed you, I mean, there's 1,200 colleges and universities across the country, so trying to narrow that down to what you want is difficult. But creating that list, and when you're young right now, that list can be big, it can be huge. Have a large list. Every time you guys go to some tournament somewhere, you guys go out of town, you go to Louisville, you go wherever, anytime you go somewhere, I would swing through a college campus. You don't have to set up an admission and that kind of stuff, but go onto the campus. I mean, you have some time off in between games. Just drive through or set something up, okay? And use that time. That might help you cross some things off your list and help you narrow that list down as you go on, okay? This is really important. The guide for the college-bound student athlete, okay? And I'm going to click on this for you. This is going to help you with that timeline. And what happens is sometimes people ask me in these presentations, they'll go, like, when are we allowed to call? And when is a coach allowed to call us? And when are we allowed to text and that kind of stuff? That stuff changes so much. It changes so frequently that I am not always aware that some rules have changed, and they'll change. When we started to be allowed to text kids, I had a kid text me, and I called her back, and I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. I saw that you texted me, and I said, we're not allowed to text. And she goes, it was a 17-year-old kid, and she goes, yeah, you are. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm pretty sure I know the rules. And she was like, no, the rules changed. You're allowed to. So they change very, very quickly, okay? So how you go, and this book gets a little bit bigger every year, but there are timelines in here that are tremendous for, in fact, you'll see, it changes a little bit. Some of these things are kind of cool. You can start to see these things like this, like what is the average enrollment at these schools for Division I, Division II, Division III, how many students at the school are athletes. I mean, you could look at that Division III, it's crazy, 1 in 6. We have like 70% of the students here are involved, like on our men's side, over 65 to 70% of the guys on this campus are involved in sports. So you can see little things like that, but then it also, and I'm gonna jump out of here now and go back to this presentation because I know my next couple slides have this on there. You can see these kind of lists. So when you say, what is a timeline, what should we be doing? So, and actually this will probably, there you go, 9th grade. So that answers your question for you. So that'll give you an idea. When you're in 9th grade, start planning, find your high school's list of NCAA approved core courses at the Eligibility Center and sign up for that Eligibility Center. So I should pay attention to my own slides, but it's been a couple years since I gave this presentation exactly. And then when you're in 10th grade, you want to be doing that. When you're in 11th grade, you want to be doing this. 12th grade, you want to be doing that. So this stuff does change a little bit, and downloading that college-bound guide for the student athlete, or guide for the college-bound student athlete rather, is massively, massively helpful, okay? When you look at some timelines for those things, communication, you look at, this is Division I sports, so when can you get recruiting materials and emails and things like that? When can you call a coach? When can you get a call from a coach? When can you have off-campus contact, visits, unofficial and official visits, and that kind of stuff. So when you're doing this, you may say, I've heard that a coach can't call me at this certain age, at this level of D1, okay? You can call a coach, though. And if they answer the phone, you can talk about whatever you want, okay? You can visit a school. A coach can't have you visit until a certain time. But sometimes people ask me the question, they'll go, Brandon, how in the world is this kid committed as a sophomore if she's not even allowed to talk to coaches until a certain point? But what happens is, especially through club coaches and high school coaches and people that are kind of trusted among certain coaches, Eric's had a few kids play at specific schools, I have as well, they communicate through us, okay? So a few years ago, I had a girl that was looking at, and the coach there really, really wanted her to go to school there. So he called me one day and he goes, hey, Brandon, at this address on this campus at noon on Monday, we're giving a tour of campus. So if you should happen to know anyone that wanted to be at this address at noon on Monday, you know, just let them know, right? And I know he was saying, call Hannah, tell her to be there at noon. So Hannah randomly walked up to this building one day and found out they just happened to be giving tours with the soccer program. And it was all completely legal because she just happened to show up there and they ran into each other, okay? I have seen coaches that are not allowed to be on the phone at times in years when the rules are slightly different. Can't have an off-campus visit, can't talk, can't walk off the field at a showcase and start talking to a coach. But you're allowed to call that coach and you can talk. So I watched a family one time, girl finishes her game, walks off, grabs her phone, calls that coach, and the second she calls that coach, he answers, and they walked off the field together and just walked away talking on the phone because it was a legal way for them to talk, okay? So there are ways around. It's not really cheating the rules, but especially coaches and things like that, you're going to find ways around the rules and ways to communicate. So the best thing to do is, if you know that you want to start progressing in that college search, but the rules aren't allowing you to do it, talk to Eric, talk to me, and we can help be that person in between, okay? But for Division II, Division III, you're going to be able to get this stuff a lot quicker. I can talk to anyone. I can talk to a freshman, I can call a freshman, I can have visits with freshmen and that kind of stuff, and that doesn't happen until later with D2 and D1 schools. Okay. This will give you an idea. When I made this presentation, I just took a screenshot of my recruiting software. This is Front Rush. This is where I keep track of all my recruits, and I just did this so you could see how many kids were in my database. That's a Division III school. Okay, so you have to find a way to kind of separate yourself from all these other players. It's impossible for me to keep up with that many kids, especially with the staff I have. I don't have an assistant right now. I don't have a full-time assistant right now. So you're going to find that schools have to kind of whittle that down a little bit, and you don't want to be someone that gets crossed out. So we're going to help you with that here, okay? I get this question all the time about these services, and I just one day just rattled off all that I could think of. College Prospects of America is pretty common. You guys have probably filled out Captain U profiles for the showcases and tournaments that you've been to. Prep Hero, I see quite a bit now. Be Recruited as well. A little bit from this group as well. But these groups will charge you $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 sometimes to do things that you can do. And all they're doing is they're creating a resume and a profile for you. Maybe they put a few words because they scouted you and gave an idea where you might fit in. And then they're sending this off to a bunch of schools. I started using them when I was younger because I just didn't have a database yet. I didn't know where to start. So I was using College Prospects of America until I kind of got up and running. So some of the younger coaches will do the same. Sometimes I just feel like we could use another forward, and I'll look into some of these services, and I'll see this kid's got a 4.0 and she wants to study nursing, and she's already liked our school, and sometimes I'll reach out to someone like that, but that is super, super rare. And what's happening right now is a lot of coaches are very frustrated with these services because they're creating their own message system. So you jump on, I'm not going to say, but like jump on one of these, and you send a message to Otterbein. Well, for me to see that message, I have to log into that site and check my email account that they created for me in there to see it. And there's no way in the world I'm doing that for all these. I can't keep up with my own email, okay? So there's no way I'm doing this. So there are actually a lot of kids out there that are reaching out to colleges and believe that they're not getting back to them. And they're frustrated by that. And I'll have kids go, oh, I sent you 3 messages on this service. I'll go, I haven't checked that service in 3 years. Right there. And what happens is they think they're reaching out, and it's never getting to us. So when you want to reach out to a school, send something to their coach. They're recruiting. The bigger the school, you might have an assistant coach or a recruiting coordinator. But you sending an email to that school, you personally reaching out to them is going to be so much better than another company doing it, especially if you're spending $1,200, $1,500 to do it. I highly suggest you do this on your own. The benefit, the cost ratio is not even close, not even close. So I had to be a little bit careful because sometimes these presentations, like I said, I share them and I put them online, and I just want to be careful. But give you an idea, I like things that fit on one page, okay? If I have to scroll, if coaches have to scroll, it gets much tougher, okay? There are little things I want to keep in. I really don't care about that kind of stuff. Obviously, I need to know your class, your number, name, obviously the positions you play, the high school that you're at, and your club. I like this little short to the point right here. This is the way I get a hold of everyone. Your GPA means a ton to me. I got your club team. This is all really compact in one space. And this helps me decide whether or not I want to keep going and want to follow up. I will tell you, this is one of the things I think is funny. Just because you're in a picture doesn't mean it's a picture that you should put on your resume, okay? I have seen kids before, and I use this when I talk about technique and striking a ball, that I had this kid who just puts a picture of themselves. They just took a shot, and there's like, I just took a shot in the game. And their eyes are up like this, and their toes are up like this in the follow through. I'm like, she didn't lock her ankle. She certainly wasn't watching the ball when she struck it. Like, I can tell. She actually put a picture in there that says she doesn't really know how to strike a ball very well. Okay, so be careful what you're putting in there, because you might actually be showing terrible technique or something. Maybe your hair looks great or something like that, but that's not what you want up there. I've seen girls sometimes put a picture of them and their boyfriend in there. Like, I want to see a soccer picture. Don't do that kind of stuff. I want to see a soccer picture. It could be your headshot or a team photo or something like that. I do think it helps to see a photograph. I'm super visual, and it's very hard for me to find players, especially when I meet with them and they come looking like they're at school, and then I watch them play and their hair's in a ponytail, or their hair looks a little different, obviously. Not as many of you guys have ponytails, but okay. So, giving you an idea of some things, I'm just going to skip that one right there. This is an actual email I got. So when you talk about those services, this is an email I got from one of those services, okay? I've crossed out the service it was. That was her email address at this. There are things on here. This is not me blocking this out. That was missing, okay? I think you got 5'3", 100 pounds. Look, 5'3", 100 pounds. It's on there twice. GPA 3.7, GPA 3.7. This is totally redundant. None of this stuff matters. This is the first and only, this is the only thing that wasn't on there. This is me telling you. That's the first and only message I received from that student. So I have 396 kids or whatever that said, and I have to decide who I have to prioritize and who I'm going to get back to. No coach in the world is getting back to this kid, okay? So stay away from that kind of thing. And like I said, that's one of those groups. This is one of my favorite ones. This is a letter. So I just showed you kind of a resume type thing. I want to send that through email, and this is a letter that I want to send, okay? This is important. This was a player who I coached. There was like her and her little sister. Her and her older sister were about 16 years apart, but she played club soccer at Ambassador years ago. And she said, "You coached my sister," right? And she talked about that. Yeah, there it was back at Ambassador, 2005 to 2008. My old sister Kat played for you a few years ago. This helps a ton, because now there's a personal connection right there, and I'm not deleting that email. I'm following up on this. You may not find that you know someone that played for that coach, but make some type of personal connection. It might be, I was playing at a tournament this weekend. My family decided to drive through your campus, and it was beautiful. And I just decided I want to look into it. And I looked into it. You have the major. It's kind of a rare major, but you have the major that I want. And I realized I have family within 30 minutes. So it's a little far from home, but I also have family close. Once you start doing that type of thing, the coaches will realize this is someone that might actually follow up. This isn't someone who got yelled at by their parents saying, "You need to start reaching out to schools," and then just quickly did it, okay? So these things are really important. That quick information right there helps next event. You'd be amazed how many times people leave something out of here. I got the field there, who they're playing is important, the game time, her jersey number, 32, that helps a ton. You would be amazed how many kids don't give me their jersey number, and they're impossible to find, okay? So that's a pretty good letter. I think Evan helped me with this. Who did this? Did you do this competition last time we did this? Up in the front? That wasn't you? I thought you did. You never did it for me? Who did? You did? Did you win or did you lose? You won, good. So you know all the answers to these. These are actual letters I've gotten. Tell me what's wrong with that. My daughter, the first thing. I've already lost interest. Like, I've been sharing a lot of these stories lately. I've had kids get to college. They do not want to be playing soccer anymore, but they feel they need to, or they were pushing that direction. So I need to know if you really want it. I did have a girl a few years ago say, "Will you cut me from the team, please? Please cut me from the team." And she was outstanding, a tremendous player. And I was like, "What's going on?" She said, "I've been trying to quit soccer since I was 14, and my parents won't let me." And she said, I said, "You're an adult now." She goes, "I know, but I just don't have the courage. I can't do it. So will you please cut me?" So a local kid, very good player, I cut her from the team. Everyone, her parents absolutely hate me. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. She didn't want to play anymore. This is a terrible sign for me. I know, like, I'm already nervous when I see that. Okay. So, all right, you know all the answers to this, so somebody else. Tell me what's wrong with this one. Oh, I'm not moving on until you guys got to get comfortable talking. So somebody help me out. Thankles already. I still say the coach, the assistant coach I had in 2011, we still tell each other thankles. So this is it. This is it. My name is Danny, and I play for my high school, one word. I just wanted more info on the team. No punctuation anywhere. This is how she represents herself and expects that a coach is going to look back and say, I need to know more about this kid. Okay? That is someone who was told, you need to start reaching out to coaches and get on it. Okay? All right. Anyone?
Name is blank.
Yeah. Dear Coach blank. Okay? Man, I don't care. I have to cut and paste. There's no way I can write to all these kids. I know what's happening. I know that kids do it. I know families do this all the time. It really doesn't bother me. When I see certain things, I'll reach out to a kid and I'll just go, by the way, you really don't want to make that mistake, because some coaches, they will. That is enough. That's enough for some coaches to say, I'm not responding. Okay? That's absolutely enough for some. Problem here. Some people caught it already. You guys aware? Do you guys even email anyone anymore? Do you guys email anyone? I feel like, they're not using email anymore. So back years ago, we had a thing called email. And like this right here, this is a kid who sent an email out to all these coaches. Okay? That is another thing that will get you crossed off of somebody's list. I will respond to these kids. Like I said, I like the educational side of it. And I'll say, hey, you can't do that. That doesn't go over well. But I once saw one of the coaches on one of these lists hit reply to all and destroyed the kid that did it. Just absolutely mocked this kid and made fun of her. I think he cut her name off of it, but you don't want to do that. That goes over poor. I need to take that out of my presentation because you guys are. This was initially, like I said, when I made it a few years ago, the only teams that we had in high school were girls teams. So I asked Jaden on my college team here if she didn't mind if I took a screenshot of her social media, because I really think she did a good job with it. You guys are smart enough now to avoid negative things. I can tell you right now, the first thing I do, as soon as someone says I have interest in Otterbein, before I even read anymore, I jump on social media. It's the first thing I do. I follow them on Instagram. I see what they're doing online and that kind of stuff. It's the first thing I do. So, and every coach I talk to will pretty much tell you the same thing. When I sit on those panels, they'll go, yep, me too, okay? So what you're doing on social media is important. This is obvious. I've been around long enough and coaching collegiately long enough to see the start of Facebook, and people were putting their addresses on there and their phone numbers and stuff. Horrible, horrible ideas. And then, so it got safer. And then people were like calling their bosses and saying they can't go to work, and then they would post pictures of what they were doing when they took the day off work, and they'd get fired, and people were like, you can't do that, right? And then people were like, only my friends see it, and they're drinking and they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, posting it online. And then people got smart enough to not do that. So right now, kids are pretty savvy, pretty smart about stuff. But there's some things you may not understand. Eric and I played in college with a guy whose wife is a very, very successful high school basketball coach. And she had a player that, it was at a D2 school, but she had earned a full scholarship to play college basketball. They were paying for school. And on social media, she was writing things like, I hate this teacher in this class. I'm tired of this class. I don't want to go. Or the next day she would tweet something like, oh, I'm going to be in trouble again today. Forgot to do my homework. Didn't do this assignment. That kind of stuff. And the school reached out after they followed her for a little bit online, and they said, we're taking a big risk on you. If you find that you're having academic trouble and you get, you get put on probation or something like that, or you're having issues because of class, you fall below a certain point, we're not going to be able to let you play. And they said it's too big of a risk, and they rescinded her offer and took her scholarship away. So no drinking, no cursing, no inappropriate. It was just like, I don't feel like going to class today, and they took a full scholarship away from her. Okay, so not only just be aware of what you're putting out there, but I actually have been telling people, like, you should have social media. I spend a lot of time speaking to young women, and I tell them how important it is that their profiles are private. It's super important, especially for young women. What I'm noticing right now, though, is people are creating soccer profiles, and that's where they're putting all their soccer. So it's a great place for me to get on and see highlights and things like that from the weekend, see you with your team, see how you interact with your team and your coaches. That's great. But there's also this second account that kids will send to coaches, and it's strange to me. Like, there's this really weird thing. I'm super respectful of people that say I'm not into social media, or my family has said we're going to tighten things up and we're not into it. But when I see sites that have nothing on them, a lot of coaches will believe that's the one they want the coach to follow because their other one has all the stuff on it they don't want the coach to see. That's just the belief among coaches right now. I think that will change in the next couple of years. Sometimes people are just making accounts because they do like to follow other people and they're not posting stuff. So it's just a piece of the puzzle right now. It's not this kind of like I know for a fact because they don't have much content, it means this. It's not necessarily the case. But just kind of keep in mind that it does seem weird. When I see a kid's account and there's no soccer on it at all, that's a huge red flag for me. I want to see kids that are passionate about the sport. So what I liked about Jaden, she's got all the normal stuff that kids would have, but you know, she had pictures and stuff from her soccer events and things like that. She's got pictures with friends, and there's no negative information on there and that kind of stuff.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
So with Twitter or Instagram, you know, my oldest is a baseball player.
Yeah.
See a lot of kids tagging coaches and like a bunch of, like when you open up your accounts, I mean, are you just hammered by all these?
I'm
all
not.
the tagging, or how?
I'm not.
Okay.
So much. I think certain sports lend to that. I think baseball, football, basketball, those kind of things kind of tend toward that. And especially at the bigger levels, I would imagine D1 and D2 schools, kids are trying to get all the attention they can. D3 schools, that really hasn't, especially in women's soccer. I do get those, but I wouldn't say hammered at all. Like I'm comfortable.
Do you like that?
I do, because I'm not getting hammered with it and it's not too much. Yeah. I do like it because, again, I want kids that are passionate about soccer. And when they have that account and they're showing me stuff they did over the weekend, I appreciate it. Ask me again in 3 years.
Right.
Like, everything's changing now too. I mean, even at D3, all these kids think they're about to be on the cover of a video game and drive a Ferrari to school. Like, they don't understand the NIL stuff. They don't understand it. So that way of reaching out, I'll probably answer that question differently in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm not noticing that, but I fully believe that D1, they're probably getting hit by that pretty hard. But they also probably have someone that manages their social media anyway, so they probably don't care either, is my guess. But I would say use this to promote positives. Show yourself doing community service. Show yourself playing soccer. Show yourself with your friends. Show all these super positive things and brand it. Use it as a way to brand yourself in a way that a school would find, you know, exciting. Okay. Your behavior on the field. This is one of the things I'm going to tell you guys. You guys have a unique opportunity, right? You're going to play in a state cup semifinal, and there's probably going to be a few more coaches. If state cup isn't as big as it might have been in a few years, and you guys are still a little bit on the young side, there's probably going to be a few more college coaches around this semifinal in the year older than you guys a little bit. But you're going to start to see some people kind of coming around, okay? A few years ago when I was coaching I was talking to the director there, and one of our boys teams, it was a U15 Boys team at the time, we hadn't done an age group change yet. His kid's already going to college, and his future college coach is watching the game in the state cup, and they lost 7-0. And this kid walked off the field like kicking the ground and literally in tears, crying. And we asked him what was wrong, and he was like, we just got destroyed. I'm super embarrassed. My new college coach is here. And what he doesn't understand is that happens. I've seen Man City beat teams 7-0 before, right? All those players are still decent players, still a good team. Sometimes it just goes that way, okay? But what that kid just showed is he can't handle when things are getting difficult. So we were trying to explain to him, like, you need to wipe the tears off your face right now and act like, if you're losing, like I said, if you're losing 3-0, the only thing you need to be doing is trying to make it 3-1. No coach cares. If you're losing 4-0, I go, God, this kid's on a team that loses 4-0 to the eventual state champs. I'm going to cross them. No one's doing that. No one's crossing you off their list for that. But they want to see, are you trying to make it 3-1? Are you trying to make it 5-1? Okay? And what it does is it opens up this tremendous opportunity for you to make mistakes. So first of all, Cruyff, you guys do a Cruyff turn. You don't know who Johan Cruyff was, but Cruyff was a tremendous player and a tremendous coach. And he used to say that soccer is a game of mistakes, and the team that makes the fewest mistakes wins. Okay? But he's recognizing you're going to make mistakes. One of my favorite coaches was the women's coach at Illinois, Janet Rayfield. And she would say, I need you guys to talking to her women's team, she would say, I need you to make mistakes every day. Just don't make the same mistake twice. It was a really cool way of saying, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. You're going to learn from it. Don't make the same mistake again. So when you're in a game and you're on a breakaway to goal in the first 5 minutes and you should have tucked it away and you miss, and you know there's a college coach watching, or you're hoping someone's there to watch you, or maybe you're just hard on yourself. But the truth is, I want that to happen. When I'm coaching, like, I don't want that. When I'm recruiting, I'm so excited when I see a kid go through on a breakaway in the first 5 minutes and not finish. Because now I'm going to learn something about that kid. I'm going to learn what she's going to do. I'm going to learn how she's going to react. I'm going to learn what she does over the next few minutes, what she does the rest of the game. And I love it. So when you make a mistake in a game, you should be like, maybe not super excited about it, but like awesome, because you now have an opportunity to prove to a coach that you've been there before. It happens, and I'm just going to move on. Okay. Same thing when you're losing. I love it when I'm watching a kid play and it's not too difficult. You have a bad referee. It's kind of every other weekend. So, but the truth is, I love it because you're going to have bad referees. You're going to feel like everything's going against you, and I need to see how you're going to react. If you're kicking the dirt and throwing a tantrum every time a bad call's made and it's affecting the way you play from that point on, well, you're going to do the same thing when you play for me in college. I can't have that. I don't ever want this, right? I want teams with great chemistry. But if you have a guy on your team that's barking at you and it makes you pout about it and not react well, it just tells me when that happens in college, right? And we do everything we can to make the right chemistry, but I can't promise you what a senior is going to do on a game that decides the end of their career and there's 10 minutes left and we're losing 1-0. She might lose her mind. He might lose his mind. And if you don't react well when someone's anxious or feeling that pressure on the field, that's not going to be good for me. I need to see how you receive coaching points. I need to see how when a coach tells you something. I mean, I've heard coaches give some really bad points before, but I watch kids look and they're like, yeah, great, and they move on. Or that kids struggle, and then their coach gets on their case, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna try it. Perfect. That's what I want to see. That's what I'm watching for. So sometimes people think this college coach was there to watch me. We won 5-0. I scored twice. Probably didn't help you as much as you think it did. Okay. When I see those things going on, that's when I learn about kids. So this is a nice thing. When you're struggling, and you might find it sooner or later, State Cup semifinal or final or somewhere at regionals, sooner or later it's going to get super challenging. Just embrace that. It's a tremendous opportunity for you. I'm going to finish this page by telling you right now, like, coaches want to know that you're going to represent them in a good way. If I'm at a game and the ball goes out of bounds and I pick up a ball and I toss it to a kid and they don't look me in the eyes and say thank you, I literally cross them off my list. And I will add a kid to my list if they're recognizing that there are people out there. I can't have people yelling at ball boys because they're not getting a ball to them quick enough or complaining about things that don't matter. I can't have that. So when someone is actually aware and they can be fully focused in a game but also aware that someone just went out of their way for them, massively important for me. People are going to know that you're wearing their badge. Okay? How are you behaving on the bench? I crossed a girl on my list one time because she got subbed out of a game, walked down the field, pulled out of her bag, and got on her phone. And I was like, maybe her sister's having a baby or something like that. Maybe her grandparent's sick. I don't know what it was. And then her coach walked down the bench, and she dropped the phone on the ground, put her feet over it to cover it, and as soon as he walked by the other way, she picked it up and started texting again. So are you yelling and screaming? Are you not paying attention? Or are you bickering and complaining about teammates and the actions and things they're doing? I want to see that. How are you driving in and out of the park? You guys are about to start driving. It's getting close. And I know I turned the radio up way too loud and I drove faster than I should have been when I started driving. But these are things that are going to cause problems on a college campus. If someone comes flying through and they love flying right here in front of the stadium and my AD is like, Brandon, this kid almost hit me. Like, that looks terrible for me, right? I don't want issues like that. Walking around with your teammates at a showcase. You guys are talking about stuff you shouldn't be talking about or using foul language. I have seen teams walk right by me, recruits that I have, and they're like, effing like this and terrible language. Like, that girl's going to do that at restaurants. She's going to do it at hotels. She's going to do it in front of my AD. That is a red flag for me. This was one of my stories I tell all the time. In line at a concession stand, I showed up at a showcase one time, and I'm there all day. I'm watching kids play all day long. And I decided, man, I need something to drink. So I go to the concession stand, I get in line, and I just happen to get in line behind a recruit that I was going to watch in the next game. She was getting there at that point, and she was grabbing a Gatorade so she can go warm up and get ready for a game. I didn't realize until I got in line. I was like, oh, that's a girl I'm coming to watch. And the way she spoke to her mother in public in line at the concession stand, I was like, she has no respect for her mother. She's going to have no respect for me. And I didn't even go watch her play. I crossed her off my list, and I went and watched somebody else. So you have to understand it's not just on the field. People are watching you. It sounds weird to say people are watching you at all times, but from the moment you pull into the park until the moment you leave, coaches are watching everything you're doing. Okay? So my U16s right now, they love playing music when they're warming up, and they think, oh, all the bad words are beeped out. It doesn't mean anything. We all know what the song's about, and it's inappropriate to be playing. So just kind of keep that in mind, okay? You guys are going to start looking into camps and clinics. I started to update these numbers a little bit. These are not even real things so much anymore. Years and years ago when we started coaching, kids were going to these residential camps, and if we did them now, they'd probably be $700-800. They'd be ridiculous. Sometimes teams will go to these team camps that we'll do. There's still a couple of them around. Take a high school team to a team camp. Those are still fairly popular. I would imagine they're well over 200 now. I don't know what Dempsey's charging. These things don't even really happen anymore. These like multiple day events, they're not they kind of happen. You might get a Saturday, Sunday, or a Friday, Saturday. You don't usually get 3 days. If you had 3 days, it would be a lot more than that, because I'm finding single day events, D1 single day events, creeping up on $400. And I'm talking about 9 a.m. to 3, 9 a.m. to 2 types of things. So you don't want to be going out fishing and seeing, I'm going to go to a bunch of these camps, because the travel and the cost and that kind of stuff is super expensive. Not that kind of fishing, Eric. Calm down. But you don't want to be fishing for schools. But I would say you get that College Fit Finder list and you have a few schools and you're like, I really could see myself at that school, and you want to attend a camp somewhere. Maybe you want to see, can I play at this kind of higher D1 schools? And you go to a camp and maybe it just doesn't go very well. That doesn't mean you're incapable of playing at a D1 school. It just means maybe you got kind of lost in the crowd there, or that it's not the type of player they were looking for. Maybe you try another one. I really want to do this, right? Maybe you start to get some feedback, or maybe a second one hasn't gone well. Then maybe you want to start kind of changing the idea. And I would do these when I'm younger, okay? If you're looking at top D1 schools, ID camps when you're a junior, you're probably not even going to be watched at those events, okay? So I would start to change and get an idea. Maybe I should be looking at smaller D1 schools or that kind of thing, okay? You also want you want coaches to know who you are when you're going to those things. If you're just showing up and hoping to be picked out of a group, I've seen those things at 50, 60 players. I've seen them at 20. It's very important when there's so much information about this, but a lot of parents will send me, hey, my kid got invited to this prospect camp. Is this legitimate? All right. The first thing I'll do is, if you can take your name out of it, put anyone else's name in there and the letter still makes sense, they're not really looking at you. They want your money. They want you to come. And if you're good, bonus. That's great. Okay. If they say, we watched you play last weekend and I need a left-footed player, and I love how you get behind and you're serving balls into the box, and I love that you're bending a ball in that way. We need a player like that. Different story. They're going to be watching you when you get there. Okay. I have worked camps. I did a camp at the University of a few years ago. Massive, massive camp. The kids that went there never saw the head coach at the time. In fact, he was gone recruiting somewhere else. It was a massive money grab. So you really have to be careful about these events and ask those questions. When you see an outside group doing it, not a school, those are massively hit and miss. You may hear that someone went to one last year and it went really well. That's good. Look into it. If someone tells you it didn't go well, I would start to stay away from it right away, for sure. Look at the coaches that are going to be there. It's really difficult sometimes to do that, though. Even at showcases, people show these hundreds of coaches. I'm telling you right now, the showcases do not update their list from year to year. You are looking at a list that includes the coaches that have been there for the past 3 years. You also have a ton of coaches that will put their name on that list, so you will send something to them. Because like, oh, I saw you on there, and that's a good way for them to get information if you're interested. Okay, so be really, really careful about that kind of stuff. But look into it. If it's very specific to you and it's a school you want to look into, I would follow up on it, okay? That, like I said, that's a pretty deep topic, and there's a lot of nuance to looking at the invitations, but run them by Eric and I, okay? When it comes time for you guys to do a visit, this is why I told you guys I'm not moving on until you guys speak, and I've been doing this with the teams in this club a lot more when I do events. I'm not moving on until people speak at times. You guys have to become much more comfortable about, as a generation, as a group, as high school kids, asking questions. My favorite thing when I'm with a recruit, I spend about 3 hours with each one of my recruits. And when I'm kind of done sharing the information I want to share, and I ask if they have questions, and they pull out a notebook and they have a pen in their hand, I'm like so excited. My interest goes way up because they have interest and they're passionate and concerned. Like they want to make sure that they're doing something. They have questions. They want to make sure they're doing right by themselves. Okay? Have questions. This is changing. I can't tell you the last time I had an overnight. We used to have overnights all the time. COVID really put a huge dent in that. A lot of times when kids do overnights now, they're coming here to visit and they already know someone here and they're kind of staying with them and it's much more informal. I like the idea of doing this. When you show up for a visit, even though I spent 3 hours, man, I've given that tour 1,000 times at this school. That's not an exaggeration. I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm sharing. I know I don't want to go in that corner of the science building, the water's dripping down the walls. Like, I'm super careful about what we're doing. I don't want to hide anything. If someone asks me a question, I'm 100% honest. But I also am making sure I go past the beautiful side of one of these buildings where all the trees are blooming and stuff like that. And people, I know they cut the grass on Mondays, so I'm going this way. So like, that's super important. When you're there longer, the longer you're there, the more truth comes out because you run out of stuff to talk about. The more you get away from the coaches and you start to hang out with the players, the more you hear. And if someone goes, I hate it here and I'm transferring, well, just remember that kid might be a jerk, right? You might just happen to be talking to the wrong person. But when you start hearing that from 2 or 3 people, it's miserable. I miss all my social events. Coach screams and yells at us. We go 2-17 every year. Take that into account, okay? Those things are important for you to know. Be safe. You have to remember when you guys do this, you're still, like I said, a little bit away from it. College campuses are college campuses. There are college kids there making college kid decisions. So you have to be super careful. If you're ever in a situation where you don't feel comfortable, let your host know. You should have that coach's number. Let the coach know. Make sure your phone is fully charged. Call your parents if you need to. Okay. You have to keep yourself safe. Okay. College campuses are, like I said, sometimes crazy stuff's going on. Always go if you can and see a team train. See if you can see them play. Training is going to be massively important. You want to see if you like that coaching style. If you get the chance to go to a match, don't go to a game where they beat the team 7-0 the year before. You're not going to learn a thing. Find a game where they tied a team 1-1 or 2-2 last year. That's the game to go watch. Because when everything's on the line and they're getting super excited, that's when you're going to see how a coach coaches. That's where you're going to see how people deal with things when they're anxious, when they're excited, when they're upset, when they're happy. Okay? You're going to learn so much more in that game. When you guys are making video, how are we doing on time? You guys are like, holy, this is so long. I literally don't even know what time it is. Am I doing all right, Eric? Or is it 9:30?
You're doing great. Keep going. Unless people have to leave, I totally get it. But I'd rather you keep going.
Well, no, I'm going to keep going until everyone leaves.
All right.
So, when you're doing video, I get this question all the time. Again, it's like that photograph I told you about. Just because you're in a clip doesn't mean it's a good video to put in your highlights. I see kids put video in there like, I'm in this one. Like, I would not have put that in there. You just kicked the ball out of bounds. What are you doing? So, but they think because they're in it, that's what they want to do. Okay? So what I do is I tell kids all the time, what do you do well? Find 3 things that you do well and you want a coach to know that about you. Okay? Find clips. We have huddle cameras now. You're going into places where there's VAO cameras and stuff. Have your parents sit in the stands and just mark down 37th minute, like that one thing. I know this is the thing, right? I love taking people on 1v1. Have your parents just keep little notes. 37th minute, 1v1, right? 10th minute, 1v1, whatever it is. Take those little notes. I win everything in the air, okay? I'm super composed, and maybe it's just technical skills, right? So I just have these 3 things. I want to know what those are, and I want you to make a video where you're touching on those things. And the video can't go an A, a B, an A, a C, an A, a B. As a coach, when I'm watching these things unfold, I don't really remember that that's something that you're doing. So what I want to see you do is take those A clips, those 1v1s, and put them, those 4 or 5 clips in a row. And then the next section, what I say, winning balls in the air, like show yourself winning balls in the air over and over and over again, right? And then we said like technical skills, show a section of technical skills like that. So as a coach, I start to see this is something they do consistently. This is something I see you do all the time, and that helps me realize that that's something you do. This is so important. I'll get forwards that show goal, 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 that kind of stuff. I've scored goals. It's not that impressive. But when I see people moving off, go back to about 10 seconds before. And when I see a striker kind of go away from where they want it, go away from where they want it, go away from where they want it, and check 2 and do something, or they start to play on that back shoulder of that player and then they check onside right on time, and I start to see their movement and the timing of their runs and the shape, that's when I start to know how they play. So I would go, and I would even show a few seconds after. If I score an important goal, and we had this great video of a great celebration after, like I can see a highlight and someone scored a goal, and that could have been the 5th goal in a 5-0 win. Who cares? But there's a great celebration after, and it shows that that was a meaningful goal that I scored. I'm showing the celebration after it too. Okay? So show your movement. Show what you're doing off the ball. Show what happens afterward. Okay? A lot of things right now, kids are doing things, like I said, the popular thing to do right now is to make an account on Instagram and put up clips and clips and clips. So I can scroll through your Instagram account, see a clip. You can put a little note there. This is what I did this weekend. This is a save that I made. I've been working on dealing with diving to my right side, and here's that kind of stuff. Okay? I would keep it short. Right? A lot of people will say your video should be like a movie trailer. It should be just enough for coaches to say, I want to see more. Right? It should be exciting. I don't know about music. Sometimes someone has a really cool soundtrack on their video. I'm like, I like this kid. She listens to 90s grunge music or whatever, but it's kind of cool, or like 80s rock or something. And then I realized her dad made the playlist. But so I would say be smart about that. If you're going to add music to it, it better not be foul language and that kind of stuff. Okay? Sometimes people put, I don't like silent videos either because it's kind of boring, but I certainly don't want to hear people complaining in the background, right? If I hear, and I know this girl says, I made this video, my dad films for me, films every game, and I can hear in the camera, and he's like, oh, gosh, and he's mad about stuff. He's like, get the ball off your foot quicker. Like, I don't want that guy in the stands. So I have absolutely crossed kids off my list because their parents' behavior in the stands, okay? So keep that in mind. I would just say the audio, make sure that you're covering up what you want to cover up and accentuating what you want to accentuate. Goalkeepers, you really have a unique situation where it's actually usually better for me to see a goalkeeping session where I can see you go through multiple saves and distribution and things like that, okay? How do I want it, right? Ask that coach what they want. Some want clips, but I see that movie trailer and I want to see more. Some people want an entire game. Some people want clips. I had a goalkeeper a few years ago, sent me a ton of great saves, and I said, will you do me a favor? Put together a highlight reel of the goals you allowed, because I wanted to see where she struggled. I was already like, I like this kid. I would definitely want to recruit her. I want to bring her in. I'm ready to start coaching. I was like, send me a video of the goals you allowed. And for some reason, she was never able to find the time to put that one together. But that's what I want. Like, I wanted something specific. I wanted to see something like that, okay? Wide view, tight view. Some people want to see you. I'm looking at a forward. Like I said, I want to see the movement. If I'm looking at a center defender, I want a really big view because I want to be able to see when they're dropping the line back, when they're moving the line up, when they're sliding things across. Like, I kind of want a big view. Like I said, beware of that kind of stuff. And the sound, okay? It's a little quicker than I thought. So what are some things that you want me to expand on or clarify, or you want to tell me I'm wrong and that rule did change and I didn't know yet? So,
what's the best way to initiate conversation or contact with the coach? Is it?
There's a couple things. Schools still have prospective PAFs, prospective athlete forms, and it's an online form I can go in and fill in. And not only when I fill that in does it go to the coach, but it goes into the school's database, and that helps a ton when we're tracking kids in the long run. But they're the easiest ones to do, and we get inundated with them. And the bigger schools probably get much more than I do. So easiest way is prospective athlete forms. The best way, so I need that resume type thing, that one-page sheet. So if it's something online, I'm not scrolling. I got that one sheet. And I have a cover letter that showed kind of the ones I want, where I said, my sister used to play for you and here are my games at this time. So that resume and cover letter sent in an email is okay, but I am telling you, nobody sends mail anymore. And when I get a random strange letter from someone, I always read it because I don't get them. I'm just telling you right now, this is the insider information I give. Handwrite or type something out. Fold up your resume and that cover letter, put it in an envelope and drop it in the mail. And whatever coach you send that to will read it, because we never, ever get those. It'll be so unique, no one ever gets those. So, very least, the email version of the cover letter and the resume type thing, and then go from there. Now, if this is a D1 school and they're at a period of time where they're not allowed to send you materials, then you're going to have to go through Eric or I. A lot of times, though, they're going to start that. So maybe that cover letter and resume shows I'm playing in the state semifinal this weekend, and I'm very interested in your school for these very specific reasons, and they're going to go watch you play. And I'm like, all right, I want more. So they'll probably reach out to Eric immediately and go, what can you tell me about this kid and how can we get in touch? Or they'll say, please encourage them to go to our ID camp that we're doing next month. And then that helps a ton, because when you're on the campus, the ability to speak to you is a little bit easier.
I have a question for Coach. Is it okay for them to put your number on their...
100%. Absolutely, yeah. Reach out to anybody on behalf of any of these boys.
So I found at that point I'm going to rely on information from people I know and I trust. So the fact that Eric has been doing this as long as he has, if I was a college coach, I'd reach out to Eric. That information means so much more to me. So yes, I would put Eric's number. I would sign Eric up for everything. I'd put his number on everything you got.
Thanks, Pete. Happy to help.
What else? This is where you guys should be practicing that. I have questions too. So, you guys have any questions?
I want to emphasize that the social media thing isn't just for college coaches either. Okay, you have to be very careful right now at this age for your high school coaches, just in general, your family, your community. There are times when things get back to your high school coaches as well, and you know it can be the difference in whether you get selected for a team or not. You know, I think it's not just a college thing, and wanted to emphasize that. Yes.
Your question: do the high school coaches reach out to you at all? Different high school coaches? Like
Reach out to me about the boys.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
for
it's
sure.
about who you trust.
No
Like
question.
I'll talk to anyone I trust, whatever. I'll talk to someone's U12 coach from years ago if it's someone I trust, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That idea of a college visit can cause a little anxiety. I have given visits to like boys, right? Because they just want to practice it. I had a few girls that I knew that had no interest in Division III. They were D1 prospects, and they said, Brandon, can I just please take a tour at Otterbein? Can you just walk me through it so I know what it's like and I don't get surprised when I go on a visit? So I'm absolutely, totally cool with that kind of stuff. If anyone ever just wants to kind of practice that or something like that. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the overnight thing.
Yeah.
Just some red flags for the boys to listen to and pay attention to with the people that they're around and so forth
Yes.
when they're on these visits. And I agree, there's fewer and fewer of those. But it's also important for you folks to ask the questions.
Yes.
You need to know what their plans are, what are they doing, what's the schedule.
Every minute.
Every minute. Super uncomfortable to bring up, but my son went on an overnight when he was being recruited coming out of high school and called me at 2 o'clock in the morning and said he had no idea where he was. His host had taken him to a party that he didn't want to go to and then left him. And it was horrible. I drove 2 o'clock in the morning, picked him up from college, we left, and he never obviously went back. And that next day, the conversation with the coach was uncomfortable to say the least. But you just need to ask, you know, what's my son going to be doing, you know, while he's there tonight? You know, what's the agenda, what's the schedule?